All right, we are live. This is the Tesla Beat podcast, number 21, and our name for this for this podcast literally is one word: Cybertruck, Cybertruck, Cybertruck. There's been a lot happening this past week on the Cybertruck, so I'm really excited to get into that and unpack what a lot of the announcements, the delivery event, the production candidate. Potentially, some information that was shared from an email sent. So I would love to just get into that. And obviously, we have a couple of other items as well. So let's take a quick look. Obviously, we do this every week. So here's a quick update on the Tesla stock, literally as of like 5 minutes ago. The stock is currently hovering around $231. It's kind of hit that dip. It was at 280, 270 at the peak probably this year. I think, as you can see, probably literally at the earlier part of July. So it's kind of taken a dip, but we also are up 114% year to date. So just a quick just catching you up real quick on where the stock is currently at. All right, so very exciting. Things are getting more and more real, and Tesla just announced that you can now put your bid in for the delivery truck event if you have 30,000 credits for referral. But I would love to get everyone's take on, when they saw this announcement, if, did this get you more excited for, what's to come, or was this more of like just maybe something to hype it and we're going to go back into potentially a delay? But what were your guys' thoughts on when you saw this announcement?
So initially, I was very excited, and then I opened up my app and realized I haven't had any referrals all year. I was immediately saddened, cried myself to sleep, and then woke up the next day and was excited for everyone else.
Jeff and Amy, any thoughts on this?
I think it's exciting. I think we're getting closer, and yeah, I had the same reaction as Joe did. I looked and I'm like, wait a minute. And I don't know. We'll see. I did pick up a Tesla this quarter. Maybe I referred to myself, and maybe that'll count. And if there's two other friends out there, maybe we'll figure it out. But yeah, no, I think we're just getting closer.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, actually, as a sales driver, there are going to be friends that are like, okay, so you've got two, you just need one more. So if I buy a car right now, we can go. Like it might actually work and drive a few sales Tesla's way before the end of the quarter here. I think from that standpoint, it was brilliant, and certainly nobody can accuse Tesla of unfairness in who they invited using this method, which is a really good thing as well.
Yeah, no, I felt the same that everyone else did, just because I don't, especially through the club channels, I never promote my own referral code, even though, obviously we're promoting Tesla all the time. So I do have my brother-in-law ordered some solar, but outside of that, that's like, those are even pending credits. But yeah, no, I think that this is really exciting because we've all been waiting for this event. They're clearly gearing up for it. It sounds like, things are very, very close. And obviously we're going to get into some of the terminology of production candidate next, but things are very close. What we're going to probably hopefully see either September or even early October is going to be really exciting. So with them doing this, it just kind of, again, is hyping up the inevitable, which is, 2023 being the year of the Cybertruck. So I personally couldn't be more excited. And yeah, I think, Amy, you're exactly right. I mean, I'm already seeing it. People are just, posting their referral codes, asking, probably if they have any friends that are actually going to purchase a Cybertruck. It's definitely going to be moving potentially those sales up, especially if they're already on the spectrum. So if you can take delivery soon, again, I don't know how long it's going to, when the event is or when they'll confirm those 30,000 credits. And so again, it could be early October. So yeah, if you can get a couple of referrals this quarter, could be, really, really fun. So Yeah, so I think again the delivery event's here, so we all know that we're getting very, very close to deliveries happening. I thought Jeff, you shared a very good tweet this past week, especially given your background in supply chain. You pay a lot of attention to the terms that people are using, and the term that Elon used this past week just drove the production candidate Cybertruck at Tesla Giga Texas. And Jeff, I'll just punt it over to you, but can you just give us some insights into how the production candidate is different from release candidate and other terms that they've been using?
Sure. Yeah, sure. There was a photo in July of all the employees crowded around the first uh, release candidate vehicle off the line, which is exciting to see in July. And then when I saw the tweet from Elon and he referred to it as a production candidate, I'm like, oh, it looks like we've advanced a phase forward. So the phase before that, so there's release candidate, then you move to production candidate, and these phases last a number of weeks or months depending on the product, and then you move from there um, into ramp, into mass production or ramp. So it sounds like we've, with the way Elon termed it, production candidate, that we're somewhere in that cycle right now. Not sure if we're near the middle, the beginning, or the end, but we're in that cycle now, which is greater than the cycle we were in last month in July. So that's progress. I view that as progress, and I view this we're just one step closer um, to mass production. I do think there's some confusion out there. I think people are, we're seeing everybody's resharing all the the Cybertruck photos on trailers, and it's exciting, and people should continue doing that because I think everybody's getting excited. But I think people are like, there's rumors like these are, production vehicles. They're going to showrooms, and they could be. This is just my opinion. My opinion is they're not in mass production yet. They could have switched over in the last day, for all we know. But those vehicles are to complete testing, and for employees to do their engineering work and complete testing, whether it's software development, in Palo Alto, reliability testing, hardware testing. So that's what I believe we're seeing all the sightings for. And when you're in production candidate, you've got to build up larger and larger sample sizes to get the rate of your line going. And get all, this is all about, at this phase, you're all about transitioning from a velocity that could be around a quarter the speed of mass production into getting, by the end of production candidate, you want to be closer, to your mass production rate, and then eventually achieve that in the mass production process. So that's where I believe we're at right now, and it's progress, and it's exciting.
Let me ask you a question, Jeff, based on what you just said. So I know there's like some speculation about like VIN registrations and all that type of thing. So when they're in this type of phase, the production candidate phase, can these still be given to like employees to use under the guise of it's a fleet vehicle for the company? And so maybe like they're going to be at like facilities or something like that and just used in that way. Because that's a lot of trucks. It's what I'm thinking. That's like, it's a lot of trucks for testing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of test cases I believe they have to go through, and I also believe they've been kind of starved on samples as they've been iterating the design. But yeah, no, it's possible in many companies, as long as all the safety tests have passed. You in many companies, I'll just go back to the smartphone world. You'll see a lot of, like, I would be using my prototypes or my pre-production phones well into production, and it's not unheard of. You want to make sure all the safety tests are passed, and there's nothing that would put anybody in harm, whether it's an employee or external. But yeah, they could be repurposed after their test case, as long as they're not been destroyed in the testing process. They could be repurposed, and again, as long as all the safety tests are free and clear.
Sweet.
One question I had is, typically once it hits the production candidate, like from your experience of getting to those like final phases of the production of hardware or more any product that's about to launch, how long does it stay in that phase for typically?
Yeah, it's all relative to the complexity of the product and how much is different or changed or new to the company developing it. So if you're doing something like a Model Y, which has, maybe 2/3, 70+% reuse with the Model 3, I could imagine that production candidate phase um, being pretty short, at least planned to be short. They may have found a problem and extended it, but you would think that that would be short. But when you're doing something where there's a lot of new componentry involved, new novel assembly techniques, anything new, sometimes you get surprises as you build more volume, and that sometimes extends the production candidate phase out a bit. So, we'll have to see, but just I think the answer is we're getting closer than we were last month. If we were just stuck in a release candidate phase, well, that would also tell you something. But we've advanced a phase. But I think just relative to the complexity, it'll. I don't know. There's no fixed number of weeks or months. It's kind of normalized to the complexity and the number of issues they're dealing with.
Awesome. Amy, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to chime in on?
Yeah, I would just say that it's, we're all impatient because we want to see this truck on the roads, and we can see the phenomenal amount of buzz that Tesla is generating, just putting the Cybertrucks on trailers and bringing them to these test locations. It's just like people are getting whiplash watching it go by on the road. But we're still well within the guidance that Tesla has given of what we should expect for production. So from a Wall Street perspective, we're impatient, but Wall Street was not anticipating any type of volume production of Cybertruck this year. They're anticipating a delivery event this year and volume production next year. So we're well within those guidelines.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jeff, were you going to say something?
No, I agree. I think they just, that's what they've said. And you'd want to go 4 years in development and then trying to rush something out for what? Again, there's not a big number tied to Cybertrucks this year. So sometimes the more careful you are in this phase, the faster you can scale. So I think they're well within what they've they guided recently.
Yeah. And then there was I'm not going to show any like pictures or anything like that, but there was a couple of things that came out this past week, specifically about the micron level accuracy. Specifically just like, talking about the build quality. We don't have to go too deep in this. We could go deep, but what was, again, because I didn't want to really show anything, but what does that even mean? What is it when we start talking like micron level accuracy, or, things within like literally the hair of a certain micron? What does that mean? And what can we take from that?
Would you like me to take this one?
Yeah, either you or Amy or Joe, either one.
Yeah. Microns. So there's 1,000 microns in a millimeter. That's one way to let's start there. There was some potentially some leak content that came out regarding just the accuracy of building the vehicle and the importance of that. And I think that's what happens when a CEO, in my experience, when a CEO is looking over the device or the product in the final phase, they want to reiterate certain things around the quality of the vehicle and the expectations, that they have. And the other thing is, this is probably the first time that they've had 5, 10, 15 of these things like all together, where they can just walk down and look at them one by one and see some of the variation. And the other thing is, normally when you're in the earlier phases, you're building one-offs, you're building very, very low volumes, and you're like, okay, well, we have this issue. We know this is warped, because of X, Y, and Z. We're going to fix it in the next rev, When you're building a production candidate, everything is production tooling and everything's, supposedly final. So I believe he's, reiterating the importance of tolerances and accuracy, in the product development and assembly process. I would hope that there weren't any like significant changes in tolerances, because I think those are the kind of conversations you would have before you design the first parts. But so I'm hoping it's like just reiterating the importance of tight tolerances. And again, when you're machining stainless steel, you should be able to get very tight tolerances on that. It's more of the when you put the assembly together, then you start actually adding tolerances, and that's where you have to actually, if you're expecting sub 10 micron accuracy, then you're putting different materials together. That's where it becomes more challenging. But I think this is a very unique vehicle in its design, and the fact that it's not painted. Painting can both uncover and also hide a lot of ills in the core structure of a mechanical body. And so the fact that this is unpainted, I also think provides some challenges as well. So a lot there, but I think it's more of like reiterating the importance of these tight tolerances into building this vehicle for scale is kind of where I saw it.
Yeah, I have a question with you, Jeff. When it comes to what we think that Tesla is supplying in-house, they would have a lot more ability to go back and tighten up some of those tolerances, which would be really, aren't they doing most of the exterior cold rolled steel themselves? So that would be something that if that was something that Elon Musk was noticing, they can go back on their own line and they can improve that, and that shouldn't have the same type of lead time as going to a supplier. I mean, what's your feeling on that?
Yeah, no, that's very true. And a large portion of the mechanical components are done in house. So I think the glass will be done, exterior. The bumpers are probably done in exterior. But in terms of the body of the vehicle, I believe all that's being done internally, including the cutting. So yeah, they should be able to, if they want to tweak things and tighten things up, they should be able to do that internally. My spidey sense goes off in terms of anytime you're tightening tolerances, you could potentially slow things down. You could potentially add costs. So those are the things to keep in mind if we're kind of looking at this from both sides. But if your process capability is there and you're just not using it, then there's an opportunity where you can do it and not necessarily slow down or not necessarily reduce yields. So tolerances really come down to how you design the product and how you design the manufacturing process. And these are discussions you have very early on. I'll just give you a quick comparison. Like in smartphone world, well, first off, we talk about this a lot because a smartphone is somewhere between 12 to 18 inches from your face all the time, sometimes even closer. So it's a very personal device, and you not only have the visual aspects of a smartphone, but you also have the feel. Like when you rub your finger over from the glass to the metal structure on the side, whether it's stainless or aluminum, you're feeling all of these surfaces on the phone. Now, 75% of people go and put a case on their phone, similar to potentially people wrapping a car. But those tolerances that we're normally from a design perspective, you get the best designers in the world. You figure out the cost structure of like, okay, I want to sell this smartphone at $1,000. What kind of tolerances can I design to, and what can I assemble to? And they're roughly in the targeting about 100 microns, 150 microns for any dissimilar surfaces coming together and adjoining. And if you wanted to get tighter on that, sometimes if you look at the side buttons on your iPhone, for example, or your Android phone, when you see those tolerances get tighter and that button has no ability to wiggle or move, most likely what they're doing is they're doing optical sorting and binning of that material. So they'll go fabricate all the material, and they'll probably fabricate it to looser tolerances. But then what they'll do is they'll do serialized binning. They'll do optical measurements of that material and figure out, okay, that side button and then that chassis will mate together for zero gaps and zero tolerances. So there's a number of things you can do to get your tolerances tighter with optical binning and sorting. But you really want to start with the design, because the better the design is, the better the manufacturing design is, then the more process capability you have and the more flexibility you have in the process. But because if you have to sort through to get to sub 10 microns, that's where the cost comes in, and that's where your velocity slows down. Sorry, long-winded answer.
No, I mean, this is, go ahead, Joe. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I believe that to be the case with the tight tolerances and the fact of it slowing down production, but I really don't think they're trying to outsell like the Model Y with this truck, right? They just have to enter the segment. So I think that people might not want to hear that, but I don't see them trying to rush it to like 500,000 units a year just to try and meet the demand. I think they're going to do what they can, make it good, and put it out as good as possible. And like you say, it's already been 4 years. Pretty much everything should be whatever it is by now. You would think like, okay, we're here. It is what it is, and it's got to be done. I think also like what you mentioned, now that they've lined them all up, he's driven it. They had a few of them to look at. He's probably like, well, we could probably do some tweaks here and do some tweaks there, but there's no need to really change anything overall. So I can see that happening. And yeah, that might initially slow down production. But I think once they get into that cadence and that rhythm, I don't think it'll be a problem later on, because like Amy stated, it's not really about a boom of production this year. Going into next year, who knows what they might do, but they're definitely not going to start off in January with like 5,000 units a week. You know what I mean? It's just not realistic to think like that, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, Joe, I think that's an absolute excellent point. We're just all so excited about it, but Tesla has said many times, volume production is next year. It's not this year. Didn't we have a number on what they were going for? There was a supplier letter leak. Was it like 300,000, 350,000 for that? Was the number that we heard for the like next year or the year after. So we have an idea of what they're shooting for, but we do know that that's not right now. That right now it's just getting some of these products out in out to customers, getting them on the road, getting that positive buzz. And Whole Motors blog had shared this awesome chart. And it was what cars people want in states. And he's like, this is the purpose of the Cybertruck. And the whole middle of the U.S. is Cybertruck country. Once you get out of the major cities, and even within the major cities in some places. And my personal feeling is this is going to replace for many the soccer mom car, because it's an extended cab. It's got a lot of space inside of it. Plus, you can throw all your kids' sporting gear in the trunk and then bring the cover over. So that I think that if the market is going to be very broad, and it's just going to be really interesting once we get it on the road, and people that haven't had the chance like we all have to have seen it in person start to actually realize how stunning this car is. I'm really interested to see what results then.
Yeah, I mean, Elon you keep saying that this is the best product that they ever have, and so I think that them growing down to the micron level detail and all of the details. So thank you, Jeff, so much for just sharing. Especially, obviously, I know this truck is not like a smartphone, but specifically just the final testing and level of detail that these companies have to go through to make sure it's final or it's ready for production. So I think, Tesla, the good thing is that they're not rushing this out. I think they dealt with different urgency when it was dealing with the Model 3 and even kind of with the Model Y. People were baking that into their forecast, and then, the roof wasn't on fire. I think the good thing is that the street has very low expectations anyways of this truck. And so, for them, it's just like I think they're operating at a level now where they can kind of, really take their time and do this well, especially given, I agree with Amy. I mean, I think this truck is going to do very, very well. I think that there's so many people that are going to be buying this truck that normally aren't even truck drivers. And then I think that, even current truck owners, the people that have the Dodge Rams, the Ford F-150s, when they see how rugged this truck can be and how much they can just pretty much bash it around and do whatever the heck they want with it. Because I think that there's been, the amount of testing that this truck seems to have gone through is just, gonna just showcase just that this is the new work truck. This is the definition of, You know, it's not going to be an F350 or 450, but if you have an F150, if you have just a regular size truck like a Tacoma or not, you know, Ford Ranger, still a little bit smaller, but this is going to be the go-to truck. And you're going to start seeing, in my opinion, construction companies buying these. You're going to see again, companies that typically will have fleets of trucks. They're going to be potentially buying them, especially when you look at what they're comparing them to. Again, maybe at some point once they get their single trim. But I think this is the sleeper, I think. And I think it was an investor day. I forgot, Amy, if it was you who asked. I think they said like 275,000. I think it really just depends. But I don't think that they're going to, I could be wrong here, and please keep me honest, but I don't even think, let's say the demand is, you know, I mean, I don't think they're in this super crazy. This is not like a Model 3 ramp where they need to hit mass production, Model Y ramp where it's mass production, where they need to be doing 1 to 2 million vehicles, you know, throughout their factories. But this is like, even if they hit 300-400 per year, you know, they're going to have demand that they're going to be able to work through for a while. But, you know, I just don't think that they're trying to get to 1 million annualized with the production line in Austin. At least that's my thoughts. And I think the caveat too is, you know, everyone is so hyped to get this truck like yesterday. And don't get me wrong, I'm hyped to get mine, but just realize there are two things going into this. Is that one, this truck is going to change. It's going to be different from the day it releases to 3 months, 6 months. They're going to be taking and removing parts literally as this thing's going down the line. And there's potentially price differences that are going to happen as this truck ramps. So just want to prepare everybody for that, so that when the time comes, I'm probably going to forget what podcast this was. So, but, you know, I wish I could record myself, where it's just like, you know, we're calling this out now, that this is how Tesla works. They work on the highest trim first, and then they're slowly deleting pieces and making things better, kind of like the Model S Plaid. They changed even the, you know, the Plaid logo multiple times. They changed the price. They also it just changed a lot of aspects of the car as the car was ramping. And so just realize that if you are one of the people that just want it like yesterday, just realize that the car is going to continue to get better as it's coming off the production line. They're going to change the pricing. They're going to I think that they're going to prioritize the highest trim. So that's my opinion of the Cybertruck and the caveats that you need to hear if you are a new Tesla owner or soon to be Tesla owner, that's how they operate. All right. Any other thoughts on Cybertruck, or should we jump?
No, I had a couple of quick takeaways. I love your comments, please. Amy's and Joe's. I do think this is not going to be just the typical, like, people who bought trucks before are going to buy this again. I totally agree with that. In fact, I never thought about owning a pickup truck, and I have one on order, and I'll gladly, you know, purchase it. You know, the second thing is, like, don't take me overly seriously when I talk about some of the manufacturing steps and some of the risks. You know, just, you know, I have ramp PTSD from a couple of decades of doing this. So just like, you know, I do want to try to comment as factually as possible, but I honestly don't know exactly what's going on inside of Tesla. But one thing I think is going on is, you know, I see all these requests for, like, what's the pricing? What's the specs? What's the pricing? What's the specs? Why would Tesla release that before the actual launch event? They're going to schedule the launch event. They're going to tell a story about the development of the truck. They're going to tell a story about the specs, that this thing, I believe, is going to be a spec monster. They're going to tell that story. And then they're going to say, well, based on, you know, how this thing was designed, how we're building it, first time ever, and the specs, this thing, here's the pricing that's going to come with it. They're going to want to tell that full story together. So I think it's going to break records from a launch event viewing perspective. I think everybody's going to want to see this, including the people that make trucks today. And I think we're going to be surprised. I think the specs the specs and the supply are going to actually dictate the pricing in the beginning. And I agree with you, John, that, you know, the pricing will change over time as supply demand changes. So, and Tesla can put all that out there. And finally, I do think there's a couple of critical processes that they're monitoring in the factory right now, and they're probably turning the dial up on speed. And as they turn that up, they're probably trying to understand, okay, what we think we can do from a supply perspective. I do think they're actually looking at data from these trucks they're building now, and that's also feeding into their final pricing decisions, believe it or not. I've seen this firsthand a couple of times. So I believe they're gathering data right now too.
Yeah, I have one more thought, and that's it ties in with what you were both saying, and that's as Tesla gets to higher production rates and more volume, their costs go down, and Tesla always does pass these costs when they go down onto the consumer. So we would expect over time that the Cybertruck will become less expensive than the release price. But when that happens, Tesla will know. Tesla knows when their triggers are on their supply deals, when the next volume discount is. As a consumer, we won't know that. And then as far as the Elon Musk email that went out, we do know that Tesla embeds their own supply chain employees down to tier 2 suppliers, and that they have been looking since the beginning of the suppliers providing the product, where are the suppliers running into problems, trying to change and redesign the parts so that it was easier for the suppliers to produce, to make sure that it was hitting whatever tolerances were specified. So I would agree with Jeff that I don't think that this is something that is new. I think this is a reiteration of what the expectation and the standard was, and just putting it out there, knowing probably it would be released, and that the spotlight was on these individuals because to make sure that they're actually getting those tolerances in place. But just remain super excited to see when we actually get those specs and the pricing. I'm just as impatient as anyone else.
Yeah, not going to mention names, but yeah, people are just, they have been, hey, stop with, telling everyone about the Cybertruck and give us the pricing and, make the event happen. And it's like, at the end of the day, I could care less how much this guy's going to hype it. If the truck is not ready, don't rush it. Wait. Again, this is a different Tesla that we're dealing with. The Model 3, people, this is not like a situation where, you're dealing with a company that's a fraud. And, they hype these numbers and you don't see anything. You're dealing, again, with the best car manufacturing company in the world, the automotive company really in the world. And so it's really just about, we all know this. It's just you can't rush perfection. And so no matter what comes out, people are still going to complain, even if it was like completely perfect. People are going to, we're going to see that too. There's going to be a lot of like overhyped, like, hey, look at the panel gaps, look at this, look at that. That's going to happen, but trying to push them even further to get it out. Like, it's not about getting this truck out. This truck is going to do well. Let's make sure that that Tesla is taking their time. I think as long as they get production going this year, they're in a good spot. Because that's ultimately what matters, in my opinion. Not getting this out, stop posting photos. It needs to go out when it's ready. And that's the most important thing. Joe, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Oh crap, I forgot. I forgot what I was gonna say. But I will tell you this: it was amazing, insightful, and it nailed it. It nailed it on all fronts. Whatever it was that I was going to say.
We agree.
Yeah, all good. So we will, if it comes to mind, just jump back in. So some of the other stuff that kind of happened this morning, it looks like, shout out to Sawyer, who did some news this morning. It looks like India is working on a new electric vehicle policy that would slash import taxes for automakers that commit to local manufacturing, following a proposal by Tesla, which is considering entering the domestic market. So I think, again, we all know that Tesla clearly is going into India. They've sent a lot of indicators. They're even renting and leasing space. But this is just another indicator that Giga India is coming. And again, I'm really excited. Like, obviously, I think that they're going to be prioritizing the next gen platform 3 out there. But ultimately, I'm really excited to see more and more signs that Giga India is happening, that they're making strides, and hopefully they can make it with some haste. Obviously, Thankfully with Tesla, I think they have leverage there, but I was really excited to see this post this morning.
Yeah, I think Tesla has a lot of leverage, and I know Amy and Jeff really have something to say about this, but I will say quickly that watching Tesla swing around their prowess in the supply chain is just like, I mean, it's just something that I know a lot of companies wish they had, and watching Tesla do this, like, hey, you want us there, you do, you know what I mean, and just like and just swinging at is just like it's. I don't think people really grasp how meaningful that is for Tesla as a company, and for like the jobs that people are looking and hopeful to get coming to their country and their areas. Like, I mean, that's just huge.
Yeah, I would like to say that this would be enormous. And it would be very similar to what Tesla was able to pull off in China. When we look at China, there has never been another outside company that was able to own their own facility without a joint venture partner. And there was a general change in China's rules, but the only person that was able to has taken advantage of it to this point is Tesla. And then Tesla got the same deal again when they announced the Megapack factory. Again, they are allowed to own that Megapack factory solely on their own without a joint venture partner in China. And everybody else is using a joint venture partner. And that was the second time that the Chinese government went and actually changed the laws to allow Tesla to do that. Now we're seeing indications that Tesla went to India and said, hey, look what China did. We understand that you have always done it this way in the past, that you have always required 100% manufacturing. And that is how, as a company, we operate. But simply none of our suppliers are there right now. They're just not there. Each of them have to build a $1 billion to $5 billion factory around our facility. These things take time. We want you to expedite our factory. We want you to be able to let us ship in parts. And they're actually getting the Indian government to look at, are we going to change the rule for Tesla and for other companies coming in if they really want to be a player in the EV market that's going forward? Being more friendly to business is going to be a large component of being attractive to those companies to come in. Now, of course, the other component we've talked about many, many times, and that's they're the world's most populous country, and we don't get to Master Plan 3 without them. It just doesn't happen. You need that. You need them involved.
Yeah, thank you for just laying out the groundwork for this. In that, because of your knowledge, your in-depth knowledge of how they've been going into these countries, it's really helpful because this is two things I want to state. Let me pull up the post real quick. But it's just one of those things where I think May Musk made a comment this morning, and she was saying how it's literally only in the United States where the mainstream media will just completely hate. Yeah. So this is what she said. The constant hate is from American media, the president, and the government agencies. When I travel in the rest of the world, they love Elon and ask, why is this happening? Does anyone have an answer? Specifically in commenting like on a post I did about how, in a lot of ways we should be propping up the things that Elon's doing. And I think that Tesla in general, in America, it's like, especially California and all the stuff that they've done, instead of making this business completely excel and do extremely well, what are we doing? We're doing the exact opposite. We're trying to, choke it in a lot of ways. And I think that, as you said, sorry, I realized I was kind of going on a tangent, but as you said, Tesla has gone into all of these countries now. They've gone into Germany. They've gone into, which, was not easy. And they faced a lot of, fake news, a lot of government issues going in there, especially because they knew once this company comes, it's going to be just not good for the legacy German auto companies. Secondly, when they went into China, what was everyone saying? This is a swamp ground. This is like they just bought a swamp. This is just like, again, this is not a Nikola, or this is not a fraud company. So people didn't realize that. But the thing is that they're going into these countries, and they're able to decide what they want the terms to be. They look at, they of course know these are the terms that have happened historically. And then they can say, yeah, we know that, but look at the places that we've gone to now, especially because China has been one of the most closed off places for American companies to go to. So the fact that they're able to get there, get on their own terms, like you said, not on joint ventures, is, really the rest of the world is opening up to Tesla. And really, in a lot of ways, America should go look at how the rest of the world is opening up to a company like Tesla, rather than trying to do and push them out in some ways, whether it's just hate on Elon and other random things. So I'm really excited what they're doing with India. It's very unique. So I know I realized I was going on a rant there, so I was just trying to bring it all back in. But the reality is that Tesla is they're setting their own terms in these closed countries. Where even as they go into Mexico, they're going to be doing things differently there than probably all the other companies that go into Mexico do. But they get to set their own terms at this point. So it's really, really exciting to see them kind of move forward. All right. Sorry, that was a long rant. All right. So this is some stuff. Joe, I know you threw this in, but fake news fails again, as we know. I think, there was even a person yesterday that was just saying like how the first, I think it was Trump actually saying that your first favorite 10 minutes of owning an EV is just the first 10 minutes. Like that's the first time you like love your EV, and then everything else is just, waiting for an hour. But the reality is that actually half of the customers, like for future owners, like they're poised to buy EVs. But yeah, any thoughts on that stat?
Yeah, I thought this was very illuminating because as the next slide will show, you have like so many people that want EVs anyway. And just like Amy pointed out earlier, in that map, in that geographical map that was shown from whole Mars, is that you realize like there is a huge subset of the country that doesn't even know, believe it or not, that Tesla exists even, and that EVs are actually better. I mean, there's it, and you would be surprised. Like I remember just a few weeks ago, there was Montana, a guy plugged in his Model 3 or Model Y or something like that into an outlet, just a regular outlet, and charged for like an hour while he walked around this small town. And it became like first page news the very next day. Like this guy just stealing electricity. It was like, it was, it was bizarre, dude. It probably cost him like $3, but he ended up giving them like $50, and was hella apologetic and everything. But they had no idea. They had no idea what he was doing. They had no idea what the Model Y even was. They had never heard of it. I mean, it sounds bizarre, but it's really insane. And I think the Cybertruck is going to play a lot into like that middle part of America that those people just don't realize what everybody else on the coast realize. And it's going to be very eye-opening. The next couple of years are going to be a shock for a lot of people.
Yeah, I've seen. I'm glad you shared that data, Joe. I've seen similar data somewhere in the. There's other surveys that have been done too, like in the 40 to 50% range, which is gigantic. Even if I've seen some as low as 25, 30%, some upwards of 50%. And if this is U.S., you have to remember right now between 7 and 8% of people buy an EV versus buying 92 to 93% are buying a non-EV. And so when you have you have these surveys that are even people see like, oh my God, it's only 25% or it's only 40%. Those are big, gigantic numbers when only 7 to 8% of people are buying them today. That just shows you that EV adoption is the magnet that pulls all of this through. So I always engage in these conversations. They happen a lot on Twitter of like, what if there's an economic slowdown? If you look at EV adoption globally, and you look at it in the US, we look at it globally, most of the data would say that EVs will kind of just continue to secular grow through a slowdown. Could there be some slowdown in the higher cost EVs? Sure. That's why it's puzzling when you see the last 3 GM announcements being 108,000 Silverado, $135,000 Escalade, and a $340,000 Cadillac Celestiq. It makes you wonder, like, are they really want to make EVs? But when you start getting where Tesla's going in terms of price, where they're below the average transaction price of an ICE vehicle today and going lower, and telling you that they're going to produce a vehicle within 2 years that, you know, will be meaningfully lower in price, it shows you they're trending in the right trajectory. They're not like, I see some companies kind of going against it, building these higher cost EVs. When you see the adoption rate growing, people are going to want more of the lower cost EVs. They're going to want a range, but they're going to want more of the lower cost EVs as well to grow the adoption rate. So to me, this is one of the most important factors. To me, it's the most important. It's even more important than inflation. It's more important than the current rates. Is, do people want to buy EVs? And the answer is yes. Now, back to some of John's points around all the FUD, all the information out there, there are large forces at play. And I just think that price, performance, quality, and just continuing that word of mouth, it's going to win. As long as the price and performance continue in the trajectory they are, Tesla, if you get in a Tesla in any tier against any other tier ICE vehicle, its performance and its specs will outclass them in the value per dollar in all of them. As long as that continues, and there's no reason, in fact, there's no reason why that can't continue, because other automakers are going to have to make more investment in EV than they currently have in ICE today. So they're not going to be able to progress ICE or have some major epiphany to take the cost structure down in ICE, because the volume is going away there. So if anything, ICE is going to become more and more challenged on pricing as EVs grow.
We've just had so many interesting comments. Going to what John was saying about the press in the United States, we forget, because Tesla doesn't spend a lot of money on this type of endeavor, but Legacy Auto and Legacy Oil have large lobby groups, and they also have large PR groups, and they have crisis managers. And they are out there gifting money to the foundation that's attached to this newspaper and trying to get their stories planted to cast doubt on Tesla to protect their own businesses. And so there's a definitive force that is creating this type of news cycle that's happening in the US. Until Tesla gets something like the Model 3 unveil and that clicker over behind Elon Musk's head, you know, getting over to 100,000 orders, while they're talking, and it's undeniable, and it's such a big news story that the mainstream media has to cover it. The wave of adoptions that we just had for the charging, it was such an undeniable story that it had to be covered. And then what Jack is saying is actually playing out in China right now. China is in very much an economic downturn, or at least it's a turning point. It could go either way from here. But there is definitely uncertainty on the behalf of the consumers of what the economy is going to do. The average sales point in China is between that 100,000 yuan to 200,000 yuan price point. Tesla is above that. Tesla's cheapest car right now is 231,000 yuan. So we're seeing a large Tesla stretch happen, but in the numbers that are coming out, other EV manufacturers in China are delaying models. They're slowing production. They actually have an overcapacity battery supply in China right now because of the economy. But you know who hasn't faced that? Tesla. Tesla is doing on track for possibly a record quarter in China. We know that they've had assembly lines shut down, and they're still doing enormous volume. So that goes to what Jeff's point is that the entire China is already there. They're past the early adopters phase. They're on to more people just assume that they're going to buy an electric, or unfortunately hybrids are still quite a large market in China, because there's doubt and uncertainty about the charging infrastructure. But you're really seeing exactly what Jeff was saying play out, where the economy is challenged, but people are still making that stretch for a Tesla. And then we know that Tesla has the cheaper products in play, that before we would have any type of economic downturn, Tesla will have a product in China that's very close or within that 100,000 to 200,000 yuan price point, especially when you add incentives. And in the rest of the world, and then we have the Gen 3 platform coming out, and that's going to do similar things for Tesla in the rest of the world. So I'm really excited about what the future is going to bring.
Yeah, one thing, maybe this is potentially, well, I think for everybody, but is, you know, as we know, Tesla, thankfully, they pioneered a lot of this, you know, us getting into electric vehicles with the Roadster, making like a performance, or kind of like not necessarily supercar, but, you know, a high end car that was just fun to drive, and really just starting to take a lot of the things that EVs were known for being bad. They took it and made that good, obviously even more so with the Model S. But as we know, they started at these high prices. And so you're seeing, Jeff, as you mentioned, like Cadillac and all these other companies, the Hummer, just starting at these insane high prices. Obviously, as we know, that their gas cars are the ones that are profitable. It's really not their electric vehicles that are profitable, because it took Tesla a very long time. So do you think, you know, in your guys' opinion, that they're starting at these high prices because they have to, and they have to work their way down? Or do you think it's because maybe, Jeff, as you were saying, that they're really just not bought into electric vehicles and that being part of the future?
Funny enough, I think it's actually both of those.
Yeah, it's both. They're actually forced into doing that to participate, because announcing an EV right now, there is market cap waiting for them. Their stock moves when they talk EV. It's just how it is, and this has even been openly admitted in a number of different forums, news forums, and so forth. Their stocks move when they talk EV. So they all have to have a meaningful presence. So if they do these announcements and saying, you know, the GM truck is coming, the GM, you know, they get, that helps their stock price. That helps the valuation of the company, and that valuation of the company helps them reinvest and do other things in the market. So it's almost like a survival mechanism for them. But both at least GM and Ford CEOs are on the record in May. They were interviewed in May and June, and they said a couple of different things where they're basically the same thing. GM said that they can't produce a car under $40,000 profitably this decade, and maybe beyond. So the Equinox was already moved up. The trims on the Equinox were already moved up above that, because that was supposed to be a sub $40,000 vehicle. And then you've seen the last three announcements I just discussed from GM. And Ford said that they don't believe that EVs will be at price parity with their ICE vehicles, you know, this decade, which means that they're both going through a new design cycle right now. They're both promising new vehicles in the 2025 to 2027 timeframe. But they know at this phase right now, based on the decisions they've made and how those vehicles are surfaced and packaged in their industrial design, and some of the early engineering discussions and module discussions, Ultium, you name it, they know where they're going to land roughly on cost. And they won't know commodities 3 or 4 years from now, but they know roughly where they're at, and they know that they've got another cycle that they would need, and that would push them beyond the decade. That's my analysis of the situation.
So it's like all these companies saying AI in other spaces. But yeah, so it's like, this is in the auto world, it's almost like EVs is like the AI term in some cases, obviously more so probably in that case. But okay, yeah, no, I think that's really helpful. Just because, and yeah, you did remind me about what Ford and GM said. And I think that's just where, again, where a lot of these legacy auto companies, who knows, some of them should not be around by the end of the decade, potentially, because when you start thinking of like, if Tesla can come out with the next gen platform, it's going to become one of those things when you think of like the size of like a Corolla or even something potentially even smaller than that. You're going to have your next gen platform 3, whatever, like the compact car. You're going to have the Model 3, the Model Y. You're going to have potentially, the Model X, the Cybertruck, maybe there's a van. And again, so you're going to have like a huge just lineup, and it's just going to become one of those things where the price points are just going to be like, imagine they start selling a van at the price of what potentially a Honda Odyssey is going from, which is like 40 to 60,000, or something that can really, because like even my Model X, it's really just not I have 6 people in my family, and so it's really we're at max capacity when we're driving it. It can fit 7 if we got the 7 seat trim, but really then there's not much room for like luggage and other stuff. So that's why I love having that middle row free. But really, if they can put out something like a big SUV like the R1S, or even again more of like a Honda Odyssey type size, it's going to help fit that market. But again, that's a different discussion for another day. But yeah, it's really interesting to see like, where's Tesla going to be in 7 years? It's mind blowing to think where this company is going to be in 7 years. It's just going to be I think even in 7 years, they might even be putting out 20 million vehicles a freaking year. So it's just, they're going to be in India. They're going to be, potentially even have another factory in Europe and in APAC. And so just, when you think of the rate that this company is innovating and going, in 7 years, these legacy auto companies, there's just no way to catch up, because this company has been, doing this literally since 2013, 2014. So they're already, 10 to 15 years ahead of all of these guys. And you're just seeing them struggle and squirm right now.
Yeah, I would like to think that what we're really going to see is Tesla really getting into licensing and platform business as well, and that might keep the legacy auto companies around, but looking very different than they do right now, because I think they'll become the purveyor of the niche vehicle. That I personally would love to have a convertible. Roadster is just not in my budget. I'm just not in one location long enough to justify a $250,000 car. I can't even imagine if I did out how many days per the days I was in that location, what the car would cost. But so I think that there might be a platform play here that would keep those companies alive, where Tesla licenses out their car operating system. They take profit on the entertainment. They take profit on the FSD, and these other competitors will produce the car. And remember, the fleet of vehicles out there that needs to be replaced by EVs is 1.8 billion. So even if Tesla was producing 20 million cars a year in 5 years, we're not close to replacing out that global fleet unless some of these other manufacturers start pitching in and helping. And with Tesla having the Gen 3 platform come out, that $20,000 to $25,000 possible price point, the average US used car in the United States right now is selling for $28,000, $29,000. It's below that. So you're going to be able to start replacing out some of these used vehicles and accelerating their journey to the junkyard and recycling it once Tesla gets the Gen 3 platform out.
Yeah, I feel like there's a set of information here. I love those points. That it just sometimes you have to just remind people of the EV adoption rate growth. What percent of one of the things we used to measure when we were creating like a new industry is just percent penetration of into the marketplace. And if you looked at like transitions of major things that happen, whether it's analog to digital and mobile phone or digital to smartphone and so forth, and what sometimes you have like a short-term mindset. You're like, okay, well, yeah, I don't see how we get beyond this number per year. And then you start looking at what rate of distribution are you in? Okay, we're only in like 8% of distribution globally. I think people just don't realize that. Just back to Amy's comments on India, the most populous country in the world. You've got Brazil as well, there's really minimal market availability of EVs in these countries, and certainly not Teslas. So sometimes I see the bearish side of this of like, I don't see how Tesla is going to grow beyond 2 million units in 24 or 25. And I'm like, well, we've only shipped to a very small percentage of the global marketplace. So EVs are going to continue to grow. The charging infrastructure is going to continue to grow to support it. And it's from seeing this before and knowing the fact that we're nowhere near in full distribution, it makes me pretty excited about like what's possible in the future. Because when you're not in full distribution and you actually have the best product, and then you actually have the best cost structure for that product, it's a pretty explosive combination.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Joe, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, well said, Jeff.
Because
I always think about the fact of how many countries Tesla's not in. So just well said.
So my wife, she's from Uganda. We know Elon's from South Africa, and I think if they can get into a place like India and make vehicles there, we all know Elon again is from South Africa. That people in Africa are very hungry for this innovation and potentially them joining the that continent. I think they're very hungry. So I think once you start to see them going, especially if they can bring a compact car that is affordable, and again, depending on how potentially solar and these batteries potentially roll out in some of these other places as well. Again, this is all, you can literally charge your car off of natural resources. And so it's going to be such a game changer in some of these places. Like Starlink kind of, is just changing the game and being able to get access to the internet and knowledge through the most remote areas. It's completely just changing the game. So I think, if you're able to bring a car, again, India will be really telling of what's possible. If they bring a really cheap car there. And again, the price isn't always the factor, because clearly we see the Tesla stretch, but this will just really, again, allow them to get to the master plan 3, which is to the masses. Right. So either way, I'm really bullish and excited for what they're doing. It's funny how this came full circle. It's like Cybertruck to now like master plan 3 and conquering the world. But yeah, that's I don't know, Joe, do you think we should talk about the last thing, the unawareness of the tax credits, or should we just leave it at that?
I think we can say that. I think the tax credit thing is just another one of these catalysts that I don't think people realize it's going to happen. Like that's just another inevitability. When you look at how many people don't know about EVs, and then you look at, imagine those people don't even know that this tax credit exists as well. Like I tell people all the time, I got people who I work with who have no idea about the $7,500, let alone like the other incentives in San Joaquin Valley. They're just like, wait, I could save like 10 grand. Like really?
15 grand. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
I think there was one estimate. It's like you could get a Model 3 for $19,000 in San Joaquin Valley.
Yeah. It's freaking insane. And people are just like, oh, I think I'm just going to go buy this BMW. Like,
man. Such a good point. And in 17 weeks, the IRA credit moves to point of sale, and it's going to hit people's, their lease payment or their monthly loan payment when they drive off the lot. And there's nothing bigger than that. It's $7,500 that in terms of interest rate sensitivity, that's going to be a huge push. And I think Tesla is going to have to build up a lot of inventory for that event. So, be careful in the coming weeks. You're going to hear a bunch of different things. By the way, I think they're depleting a lot of inventory as they slow and bring these factories down for upgrades right now. But you're going to see they're going to have to do a pretty interesting transformation if they're bringing up new vehicles, sunsetting the old 3, bringing up the new 3, building up for Cybertruck, then building up 3 and Y inventory for this credit coming to point of sale. It's going to be a pretty exciting last 4 months here of the year. for the company. And I love the point about the lack of awareness, because it's strange. People see the price cuts, like the price cuts started, I think, on January 12th this year, and people thought like January 13th, like they would just sell a bunch of cars. I'm just telling you, like, probably like less than 0.5% of people that, you know, are buying cars probably knew about it the next day. It's just, this awareness takes time, and it kind of builds out over time. And then once it's there, eventually people are going to realize that Teslas are cheaper to buy than their ICE counterparts. It's going to happen. It's just going to take a bit of time for that awareness. I think it's a great point. By the way, in Illinois, they just added a $4,000 credit. So basically, if you qualify for the 7,500 or close to it in terms of qualifications, they tack on $4,000, and they send it to you pretty quickly in the form of a check.
That's
I don't even
awesome.
think it's a tax credit.
Yeah. No, that's just, I think that's going to be one thing that, you know, outside of all of this, you know, outside of just building awareness of Tesla, this is something all of the companies are going to have to, work through. And you're starting to see that. I mean, again, at least my understanding is a lot of these companies are building up tons of inventory for their electric vehicles, like the e-trons and all this other stuff that are just not moving. And that's the awareness that they're going to have to do. Obviously, I don't think a lot of them, some of these EVs don't even qualify for the, you know, those tax credits incentives. But this is definitely one thing that Tesla will have to face as an uphill battle, is building that broad awareness that these cars are more affordable than ever. Get in one today, go test drive one, and build that awareness. That's probably the biggest uphill battle. You know, even how, you know, I feel like I've personally faced similar things where it's like, you know, you already are at, you know, sending a message to the base, right, of the people that follow you, the people that follow Elon, people follow Tesla, or already know about it. But how you clearly, to reach the masses, you have to go beyond that, and not only just telling them about the product, but telling them that it's affordable and why it's the best car on the planet. But yeah, I'll get off my soapbox. But you know, I feel jazzed. Number 21. Tesla Beat was just awesome. So great discussion. Thank you, Joe, for putting the shell of the deck together, a lot of the content. And so please patronize our 4 hosts here, specifically Jeff at the Jeff Lutz. Please give him a follow on X. Joe from San Joaquin Valley. Hashtag the Prez, but at SJV Tesla. And then Amy as well. The new handle is @_SF Tahoe. So give her a follow as well. But without the 3 of you, this podcast would not be a thing. So thank you for your time each week. Thank you for all of the knowledge that you're dropping and contributing to making this an awesome podcast. Have a great week, everyone.